Hello everyone, and welcome to something that's going to be a little bit more different in terms of my style of content, and I apologize if I'm a little bit louder or closer to the mic. I'm trying to be quiet, so I'm close to the mic, so hopefully it can adjust to the volume of everything. But, this is more of a proof of concept type video in terms of just the subject matter and how it's being presented. Because this is probably a gaming channel, but I thought I'd talk about it because I've been wanting to talk about it for a while now. It's not necessarily a review, it's just sort of, I guess it kind of is, kind of isn't, depends how you look at it. But if you didn't already know, if me talking about it on Fox 10 wasn't already enough, or mentioning it in occasional videos when I'm playing with friends and stuff like that, I have gotten addicted to Doctor Who, to the point where it has become very much a comfort show for me, where whenever I'm in like a rut, I kind of just pop it on and just start watching it again, whether it be through my phone or watching on Xbox through Kitsune or stuff like that. But yeah, I've really been enjoying it. I did a big binge with my friend Evie, my partner who is on Fox 10 with me, and yeah, we did a huge binge, and obviously it was before the most recent Fan Expo when we started, so about June-ish, maybe July, around there, kind of like just during the summer in general, and up until basically watched all of the modern Who mainly, up until the release of the most recent episode. And I will say this, preface this now: if one, you're not interested in Doctor Who and me talking about it, feel free to leave. I won't be offended. If you don't want to see more videos like this, just let me know in the comment section if you're okay with it. But it's just sort of talking about something I enjoy, so I thought I'd at least have a little bit of a video, you know what I mean? But if you are interested and you want to hear me talk about it, I will warn you, there are going to be mentions of minor spoilers. I will try not to say anything too spoilery, but I will at least say right now that this is your warning that there will be spoilers mentioned, and if I do mention that it's a little bit something more spoiler heavy, in general, I'll try to keep major plot points. I might mention a few minor things here and there to give context as to why I like certain characters and why certain characters are impactful to me as to why I enjoyed their story arc or whatever, but I'll try to keep it relatively spoiler-free. Try not to reveal too many twists and stuff like that, because a lot of Doctor Who is a lot of twists and turns and timey-wimey stuff. So, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, if I'm to correctly quote the 10th Doctor. That being said, we're not start with the 10th Doctor, because that's not where I started. I started with the 9th Doctor, as played by Christopher Eccleston. We start right at the very beginning with Rose, and I was already, like, just to give some context, I was already, like, aware of Doctor Who. I kind of knew what it was. I kind of had a vague idea of, like, what it was about. Not necessarily I knew up to a point. Like, I knew what the TARDIS was. I knew it was a ship that was bigger on the inside. I knew that there was the Doctor was someone of significance, who doesn't really have a name. His name is Doctor Who, kind of thing. Like, his name is the Doctor, and I just figured it's like Doctor Who was the name of the show. Obviously, this is just sort of before watching the first episode. I knew of only one really major character in terms of in general, which was Weeping Angels. And I believe maybe Daleks, I can't remember. But, yeah. I would gone into it basically not knowing anything other than just there was this character called the Doctor, and it was a time travel sci-fi show that started off in the 80s, I think? Or no, maybe, no, later than that. 60s, I think. Maybe. I apologize, I'm not 100% sure. I know it started back in black and white on BBC. So unfortunately, forgive me if I get any years or actors' names, whether it be pronunciation. I don't know the actor's name or actress's name, or if I don't remember episode numbers. I'm going off basically a list of bullet points that I have here to sort of cover with each Doctor. So forgive me if I do forget episode names, because I might start rambling a little bit like I am now. But I will try to cover as many bases as I can, as many points as I can for each Doctor. But going back to 9, I'll be referring to them by either their last name, or the actor's last name, or the number designation, in terms of the Doctor. But with Eccleston's run, or the 9th Doctor, I really enjoyed it. Rose definitely hooked me in right out the gate. Like, this was it was interesting. I really liked the character that was the Doctor. He was very interesting. And at first, I was a little bit taken aback by how the Doctor was. I was told he was not necessarily a superhero, but I was told that he's like this, I guess the proper word would be vigilante. Like, he's not necessarily hated among other people, but he's just I would more describe him like a superhero or vigilante. And I was kind of taken aback with how snide he kind of was coming out right at the gate, but I soon learned as I watched on that this was a normal occurrence, that he was a sassy and very smart alien, to basically put it, because the Doctor, if you aren't aware, is technically not human. And again, I'm not going to go too in detail, but you'll understand. He's an alien called the Time Lord, and he's from a planet that called Gallifrey. And honestly, the entirety of the Doctor Who storyline, in general, is something that I definitely think is more better to be experienced than to be explained. But yeah, he is this person from outer space. He travels in the TARDIS, which, if you don't know how the TARDIS came to be, the TARDIS is a spaceship that can sort of disguise itself as whatever the person wants. However, the TARDIS that the Doctor travels in is stuck as a blue police box, the iconic blue police box that you've seen in who knows how many big games and who knows how many references to it. It is bigger on the inside. But Rose introduces us immediately to the character called Rose Tyler, who is the first companion of the 9th Doctor. And technically, but we'll get to that later. But this is the first ever companion. Great storyline. I really like it. It's very fun, very all over the place. And Eccleston's first appearance is great. Him being just who he is in general, and I like it. It's a really good introduction. It kind of really hops into it really quickly. It doesn't burn off, slow burn it, but it's decently fun. And as the season progresses, it gets a lot more fun. I believe it's a few episodes later, you get to meet what is one of the more iconic enemies of the Doctor, called the Daleks. And they're one of my personal favorites. You'll hear me say this a lot, that there are a lot of favorites in this. I love this show. So to say something is my favorite is basically me saying I like these characters a lot. But I will try and at least give a definitive top 3 or top 5. I definitely think the Daleks are definitely top 3 for me. Up there with two others that I'll be mentioning earlier. Or I'll be mentioning later. Obviously, to meet your first time meeting one is very tense, very scary. Oh god, this is a actual alien from space that's truly going to be a threat to everybody. And then obviously, every episode the Doctor sort of takes care of it, unless it's a multiple part episode, in which case he still takes care of it. But 9's run has a lot of good episodes. It has one of my favorite episodes from 9's run, I believe, is called, oh god, I forget the name of it. If you're a Who fan, Are You My Mummy will basically hopefully help me out here. Essentially, I don't want to give the plot about way too well, but it introduces to a new character called Captain Jack Harkness, who is one of my favorite non-companions. So the Doctor usually has a traveling companion that goes with them in the TARDIS to all these adventures. Sometimes they'll have characters that occur more than once that aren't traveling with them, but they're a character nonetheless that reoccurs. Jack Harkness is one such character, and he's one of my favorites, if not my favorite, but my favorite non-companion. We'll meet a little bit later. And he's a great character. He's very funny. He's very flirty, and I do kind of like that about him, that he's kind of always trying to be the cool guy, trying to flirt with everybody. And it's very funny, because he really doesn't have much boundaries in terms of that. But in the 2000, it's 2005, so it is a little bit weirder, like looking at it when you think of the context of when this is coming out, but it's still funny. Like I said, Doctor has a lot of funny moments in it. Hell, one of my favorite lines from 9 that I can think of right off the top of my head is from an episode that we actually didn't, in our little watch through, we didn't watch. I went out of my way to watch it. It's called Love and Monster, or not Love and Monster, sorry. That's a different episode that I'll touch on later. It is, I don't remember the name of the episode, but I just remember that the episode has a character who essentially is a slab of skin, and they have to keep on being moisturized, and they end up, I don't remember the exact quotes or anything, but I watched a bunch of compilations and stuff of like clips, and I wanted to get the context for this scene, but she basically threatens the Doctor, and all of her servants are pointing what are essentially water guns at him, and he says, "What are you gonna do, moisturize me?" And when you see the scene, you'll understand just how funny it is, because you have this somewhat younger man, or like, I don't want to say, Eccleston does look decently young in it, but you have this quite, like, well-dressed man being threatened by water guns saying, "What are you going to do, moisturize me?" And it is funny. But in general, 9's run is really great. It ends up, obviously, every tenure of a Doctor tends to end around Christmas time. So the his final episode, which then will lead into a Christmas special, I believe. I believe it does. Definitely very heartwarming. It's nice. It's a two-parter. You'll hear me mention this whenever I mention my favorite episode as a two-parter. You'll say, "Well, then it's 2 episodes. Which one is it?" I consider stories that are over multiple parts one episode, because they do tend to be seamless. The two tend to be seamless, like right into each other. But I digress. His finale is great, and you're probably wondering why I mentioned it's the end of his run, but then I mentioned there's more Doctors. The Doctor can do this thing where he can cheat death and basically change his face in exchange for he basically gets kind of, I don't want to say sick, but he kind of gets knocked out of it a little bit. But he can basically cheat death. And he can, this is kind of how they have the Doctors sort of have their run and their tenure. But Christopher Eccleston only had 1 season, and he ends up regenerating into the 10th Doctor, who a lot of people will say is their Doctor, or the Doctor, or like the face, like the true real Doctor kind of thing, or like he's probably like the fan favorite Doctor, David Tennant. And he's fantastic. And yes, I know I didn't use that word for Eccleston, but I do think he is fantastic. Every Doctor's fantastic. I love all the Doctors. But Tennant definitely is where a lot of the iconic Doctor Who moments come from, whether it be one of my personal favorite enemy types, the Weeping Angels getting introduced during Doctor's run. My favorite companion has their my other favorite non-companion character gets their first episode with Tennant. We got one of my favorite references that appears in Fallout New Vegas during the same episode as we meet the other character that I want to mention. And I'll try and, I'm not pressed for time, but I want to try and condense all my thoughts into roughly 45 minutes, so it's not going on here for like 2 hours. But yeah, Tennant's run probably has a lot of good episodes. If I had to pick like a handful, I'd say Silence in the Library. That whole story of the library I thought was really good, because of the character we meet called River Song. She's a character that has a really mainly overarching story with the next Doctor's run, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Another one is for Tennant, let me think. Family of Blood, probably in my top 5 favorite episodes is Family of Blood, just because it's such a unique perspective when you look at it from what the context of everything is, of like what's going on, how you'll understand. I don't want to spoil, but it's a really good episode. It's one of my favorites, at least for Tennant's run. It's the Flame of Blood arc or story is definitely probably up there, even outside of Tennant. It's probably, like I said, top 5, top 3, maybe. And And I failed to mention this. The Doctor has a device called the sonic screwdriver. And I will try not to comment on it, but occasionally I will if I want to mention it for certain reasons. Whether if it swayed a little bit of my opinion on it, but his is pretty cool. I like the sonic screwdriver as a whole, so I'm basically, no matter what happens, as long as the sonic at least is being used a decent amount, I'm okay with it. Or a sonic device, as we'll get to later. Tennant's run is definitely feels like it's the longest. Because I believe it has more seasons, because I think, obviously, there's a pattern of, at least after Tennant, that each Doctor gets 3 seasons. Or 3 series, quote-unquote. And, yeah, I feel like Tennant had a lot more than 3. I think he had, 8 or 9, I think. He had a lot. But Tennant is a great Doctor, and he has a lot of iconic moments. You meet one of his arch nemesis in the first time in the modern era. I'm specifically saying modern, so 2005 onward. You meet the Master, who is one of my favorite villains, especially later on in the later series. Because the Master is another Time Lord. And in the Family of Blood, there's something that gets introduced that if you watch through, when you find out about that item in the Family of Blood, if you know, you know, you'll understand why I like the Master so much and why his character was such a cool thing for me. As well as in general, the Master, he's a Time Lord. He's basically the inverse of the Doctor kind of thing, if I can best describe it. The Doctor is yin, the Master is yang in a lot of ways. But he still has a lot of the funnier quips and funny moments, especially in his first episode where he's the character he's been disguised as. Again, if you know, you know. I want to try and keep it as spoiler-free as possible. But yeah, he has some moments as one of the characters that he is basically filling the shoes of, and it is funny. In a dark way, I would say, because he is evil, obviously. But Tennant has a great run. He actually ends up having 3 companions, because he does have Rose from Eccleston's run. And then soon that ends off with the episode, I believe it's something Ghosts, or Ghost. It has Ghost in the title. I forget the name of it. I know a handful of episodes off the top of my head, but unfortunately I don't know all of them off the top of my head. I have bullet points for ones I wanted to specifically mention. This one I forgot to look up. But yeah, this one, it's a very sad goodbye to Rose. Because each Doctor has different companions. But sometimes they have more, sometimes they have 1, sometimes they have 2. In the more recent runs, that you have upwards of 3. But even then, they typically will have 1 companion overarching in a story, sometimes more. But yeah, the main thing is I liked Rose a lot, and seeing her go was very upsetting. Played by Billie Piper. And then we meet Martha Jones, who I'm not a huge fan of. She's a great character, and she's played very great. I just feel like all of her episodes were kind of and that's no fault to her or Tennant or anyone involved. I just feel like a lot of her episodes we kind of skipped over, and I was told they're not super plot relevant. They're more of this a side adventure that they do kind of thing. But I definitely want to rewatch a lot more of the episodes. One of them, I believe, is no, I think that one's a different one. I believe it was different, but I know one that I'm going to mention that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. It's called Blink. The introduction of one of the most terrifying and probably one of the more iconic ones. If you've if you play a lot of video games, you might recognize them. They are called the Weeping Angels, which, if you don't know, to give a best comparison, they work like SCP-173 in a basic way. If you aren't looking at them, or if you blink, or if you just aren't looking at them directly, they will move at extreme speed, and rather than snap your neck, they do something a little bit more terrifyingly brutal. And I want you guys to figure that out and watch that if you haven't already. I definitely recommend at least watching. Like I said, if you ever get the ability to watch the BBC Network's Doctor Who, please do. It is a great watch. It's a lot of episodes. I believe right now we're on, it's 13 seasons. Technically, if you count each, not that like 13 seasons across, I believe, 4 doctors, technically, or 4 different iterations of the Doctor. But yeah, it's great. There's a lot of character. There's a lot of fun episodes in Martha Jones's run. But before you actually meet Martha Jones, technically, you meet a character called Donna Noble, played by Catherine Tate. And yeah, she's like probably top 3 companions for me. In terms of episodes, because she has some really good episodes. They have an episode where they go to Pompeii. They have an episode where they have an episode where this is where Silence in the Library, where you meet River Song, who is my favorite side character, and she also may or may not have my favorite sonic screwdriver, which is a version that we will meet, which her story is mainly wrapped around in the next Doctor story, like I mentioned, but I like River Song. She's a very, very good character, and I'll try to explain why in the brief moment with 11's run. But then Donna Noble is a very important character, and again, I'm not going to spoil it, but Donna Noble is very important. That's all I'm gonna say. And this is the reason why she's my favorite character. She's one of the very few companions that will sass the Doctor back, and you'll find out why. You'll find out why. I love it. Then towards the end of that tenure with Tennant, we reach what is essentially the final episode of Tennant's run, and it is heart-wrenching. And essentially, I've probably made reference to it in videos, but I do a little, sometimes when I'm sitting at work, I'll do a 4 beat knock. It kind of goes like this. I don't know if it's getting picked up, but you kind of get that. That's important. That's all I'm going to say, is that little beat is important. It's an overarching thing. But there's a character who is, I believe, Donna Noble's father, named Wilf. I unfortunately do not know his actor's name, but Donna Noble's parents, or grandparents, I believe they're parents, they are a treat. They are always, whenever I see them on screen, it's always a good time. I'm always either having laughs, or I'm always like actually worried for them. Especially Wilf. And unfortunately, the actor who plays Wilf is no longer with us, and I'm glad he at least was able to get into the 60th anniversary special, because it's great. And yeah, and don't worry, I will bring up a specific spoiler towards the end, and I will make sure that I either put timestamp on screen or at least bring up, hey, there's a spoiler. But yeah, I'm excited to talk more about our next Doctor, 11, played by Matt Smith. And I really, really like Matt Smith for more reasons than just the Doctor. Morbius, that's all I'm going to say. But he is probably the personification of just high energy, like more childlike Doctor. And he's amazing. I love a lot of it. A lot of his episodes are really good. One of my favorites is, I don't remember the name of it, but it's basically another Weeping Angel episode. It's a 2-parter, and it's really, really good. I love it. It's amazing, and it's very tense and very, very like nerve-wracking when you are watching along. Another one is called, I believe it's called The Pandorica Opens is the final one, or just The Pandorica. But that one has a really good speech in it. Something I will mention is the Doctor tends to do these big monologues. There's one in X-Men's run where he's talking about how he can feel the returning of the Earth and the whole world moving around him. There's a lot of good Tennant ones. The one where he's on a spaceship. I'm not gonna say the name of it because I'm gonna spoil it because it caught me off guard. And I was like, it caught me off guard. And he's doing a big speech about who he is and all this. And then there's one of my favorite speeches from Matt Smith, which is in the Pandorica episode. And there's another good one in a later episode, I believe towards the end of this run, not the very end, but towards the end, that we'll talk about later. But Matt Smith's first companion that he gets is Amy Pond. And God, I love Amy Pond. I love Amy Pond. I love her character. I love everything that is Matt Smith's first few series, especially. And good God, does Stephen Moffat know how to write really, really well early on? Because I love all the writers of Doctor Who. There's not really a bad writer, in my opinion. There are bad episodes. Every single writer, in my eyes, has bad episodes. Stephen Moffat has some, episodes. Russell T Davies, who made most of Tennant and Eccleston's, had some very episodes. Love and Monsters comes to mind. But Matt Smith has a lot of really good episodes. One good episode that I really like, obviously, is you have Pandora Opens. You have the entirety of Series 7 I really, really like. A lot of people don't like Series 7. I really like it. I have my... I might be a little bit more biased because obviously my friend told me it was really good. Evie told me it was their favorite. But I think, honestly, looking at all the episodes and like looking at a list of them, I looked at them before when I was writing on my bullet points. I do like Series 7. It wasn't awful. I definitely think it was probably not my favorite out of all of Matt Smith's run, but it definitely has some really good episodes in it. One in particular is The Rings of Aika. Another good speech by Matt Smith. And there is an episode that I want to mention. It's a special episode. I believe it is the 50th anniversary special. I'm not going to spoil what it is, what it's about, or anything like that, but it is, when you watch that, a lot of the reasons why I like the next Doctor, probably the most, is because of that episode and everything, and the sort of underlying story of the Doctor that I recommend you watch. Again, watch the show. It's great. 11 has a lot of good episodes. And I could go on forever about them. But one episode that, for me, broke my heart to no degree, to the point where I very rarely cry watching media nowadays. It's an episode that takes place in New York. That's all I want to say. And it is basically the end of Amy Pond and her boyfriend / husband, Rory Williams' tenure as the companions of the Doctor. And it is heart-wrenchingly painful to watch just because of the ending. And I'm not going to spoil it, but it is heart-wrenching to watch to see what happens to them in terms of like how they're basically taken off the show, like without it being sort of like they're kicked off the show or they walked away kind of thing. Like the end of their story kind of thing. It's heart-wrenching. Again, I'm going to try and stay spoiler-free, but God, that episode... I'll just give you the title. It's called Angels in Manhattan. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, you know that episode, and you know why I was so heartbroken. If you're not, watch the episode. Well, please watch all of the series that those two take place in, and watch it, because it is an amazing story that the Ponds go through. Amy Pond and Roy Williams Pond. Because yes, they do get married halfway through his tenure of Matt Smith, at least in the first two series. Then we get on to the next companion, who is Clara Oswald, who I really, really like a lot. And I hate that people don't like her in Series 7. I think she's funny. I think she's great. She is really, really funny. And yeah, in general, it's great. I can't really name any episodes. I remember there's an episode where like they get trapped in the internet kind of thing. I think that's about it. I can't really remember the exact context. That's all I can kind of remember. Unfortunately, again, it was all a while ago, so my memory's hazy, and like I said, I had bullet points, and I should have looked up all the episodes, but I didn't, because I want to make sure this video came out on time, because this is supposed to go up like a month ago, like, as we record this, it is the 26th, almost 27th, into 2 minutes from the 27th, and this is supposed to go up like before Christmas, so, yeah, there is a lot of episodes of Clara Oswald that I like. Not all of them are Matt Smith's run, unfortunately, but there is one that we'll be getting to in the next Doctor's run, which we're going to be going right to now, oddly enough. Because I don't want to mention the specials really too much, but there are a lot of good specials. The Christmas specials are always great. The two-parters, always good. But there is one episode in particular in Matt Smith's run that I feel like if you don't, you need to be unspoiled. And that's why I'm going to stop talking about it. We're going to go on to this 12th Doctor, who is Peter Capaldi. And good God, do you know a fan acting in a show they love when you see them? Because Peter Capaldi is great. I really hope that at Fan Expo this coming year, in 2023, that if there's a Doctor actor there, if it's not the 13th Doctor, I hope it's 12. Because I would love to be able to meet him. He seems like he'd be such a nice person to meet. If not 12, maybe Matt Smith. Maybe Tennant again. He might be coming again. If not, Christopher Eccleston. I'd love to meet any of the Doctors. I said I'd love to meet any of the Doctors. But Peter Capaldi, I think, for me, is my favorite Doctor. I think it is definitive that he is my favorite Doctor because of an episode in particular that we're going to get to. And I also forgot to mention, Matt Smith's Sonic is very iconic to the point where the people who make the props, remake props to sell, they said this is going to be the last batch like 3 times, and it is a fan favorite Sonic. It is like a fan favorite Sonic because it's really unique looking. If I can remember to put an image on screen, I will. I should try to anyway. Like I said, I'll try. But it's really cool looking, and it's like all these little unique parts and stuff like that. I'll just put up Tennant's here, the Tennant Eccleston one. I'll put that up here. River Song had a unique one. I'll try to remember to put that up here as well. I'll just put up all the Sonics that we've seen up to this point. In terms of actual Sonic screwdrivers. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can find the Masters. I'll try to remember, but I'll at least put Tennant and Smith's here. I don't know if I'll try to remember to find River Song Sonic. Peter Capaldi has some great episodes. I don't know the name of it. There's an episode early on in his run where the TARDIS ends up shrinking. And it's really, really funny, and it's a funny episode, and we meet a really terrifying monster in that with Clara, and that it is really, really good. I love that episode way too much. It's just so funny. Another one that I'd like to bring up is, we're going back to Matt Smith briefly, but a lot of the times when the Doctors regenerate, they'll sometimes have a speech beforehand, or at least they'll do something significant, and then they'll have this moment of regeneration. Tennant's was heartbreaking. Tennant's was so heartbreaking because you can tell they put a lot of work into it. They put so much work. And if you ever watch it and you end up wanting to get interested, look at the alternate takes of Tennant's final line. It is heartbreaking. And then you go look at Matt Smith's, and it is such an amazing, goodbye speech for Matt Smith. It is amazing. His final line, and I will spoil this, it's his last line. I'm not going to say the full speech, but his last line is, "I will always remember when the Doctor was me." And then Peter Capaldi is the speech man. He has a lot of speeches, a lot of monologues. And he is a fan through and through, and I know everything he does in his run is like moment after moment. It is constantly just amazing. Just in general, he has so many good episodes that I legitimately, every single time I looked over, I was watching a Peter Capaldi episode, I'm like, this is really good. I'm not gonna say it has probably one of my favorite episodes is probably the one that gets tied for number 1 the most is in this series, or is in his run as the Doctor. And we're actually going to touch on that because it's still before Clara's run. Before Clara's run as the companion ends. It is called the Zygon Invasion / Zygon Inversion. It is a 2-parter. Or I just call it the Zygon Invasion 2-parter. There's a moment in the second half, or the second episode, where Capaldi has this huge speech. And who he's talking to, I'm not going to say. But it is such a well acted and well performed speech that if you know who the Doctor is at this point and how much he's gone through, everything he says hits like truck after truck after truck of just emotionless weight. And Capaldi nails it the entire time. Capaldi is an amazing actor, and in my opinion, he is probably the monologue doctor. For me, I'm not gonna say he's my doctor, but he is the monologue doctor, and has probably some of my favorite episodes. If not him, definitely Matt Smith. But don't worry, I'm saving one of my favorite episodes for last. The other episode that ties for number 1 for last. But yeah, Capaldi's run and Capaldi's first series ends with a lot going on, and then in his second series, I don't remember much, unfortunately. I believe that's when the Zygon version 1 happened. I can't remember. It's all a bit hazier because it's been so long since we've watched them all. So I might want to do a full rewatch again and do a more and try and remember a lot. But again, Capaldi has a lot of episodes I really, really like, and I remember liking a lot. And I didn't mention it during Matt Smith's run, but there was a really, really funny episode. I believe it was during Amy Pond's run. I don't want to say it, but I'm just gonna say one name for the fans, and you'll know exactly which one. Idris. So if you know, you know. If you don't know, whoop-de-doo. Please watch it. But Capaldi's last episode, or last bit with Clara Oswald. What? I'm not gonna spoil, but when you realize what's happening, and it's already too late to really react to it, and then it happens, it's just like, oh, that just happened, huh? Yeah, it's one of those episodes. But yeah, and then you have Heaven Sent, I believe is the episode, which is basically an entire episode of him of Capaldi talking to himself. And it's a great episode. It's really, really well done, and I love it. It is another one of Capaldi's great episodes. And then Hellbent, the second part of it, is great. And then we come to what is a big turning point in a lot of people's minds in terms of the Doctor. You get into his last series, I believe Series 10, which is meant to be sort of a softer reboot of the series, so everything feels a little bit weirder, and I don't really like it all that much, but I still like it, right? It's not my favorite series, but it definitely is interesting, to say the least. It has the introduction of Bill Potts, whose actress, again, I feel that I don't remember all the actresses. There's so many. There's so many. All right. And then there's also obviously the introduction of Bill Potts. In general, she has actually, I will say, there are some there. I do remember, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, there is one episode I really like from Bill Potts' run that I can think of. I don't remember the name of it. I just remember that it involved emojis and robots. That's about all I can remember for people who know. Again, try to keep the comments spoiler free, please. If you have watched it, so please try to keep them spoiler free, just for the sake of people who may not watch it, who may get interested by watching this. I know there's Modern Warfare 2 gameplay in the background, but listen, I don't want to get copyright claimed by putting clips on screen. The most you're going to be getting is the sonic screwdrivers. I apologize. But Capaldi's last hurrah as the Doctor. Not necessarily his final episode, but his last major story before his inevitable regeneration. Which isn't the Christmas special, not the Christmas special, the one before the Christmas special. Is just... oh, God. It is such a hard... it's a hard episode to watch because of just what happens. But... yeah, I want to say... in terms of my favorite Last Doctor episodes, it's not my favorite, but it's up there. There's a whole climactic point with a character called Missy, and it's a huge thing. You have a whole bunch going on. It reintroduces, I forgot to mention them. I can't believe I've gone 30 minutes, almost 40 minutes in this video and not mentioned my third favorite enemy, the Cybermen. They get introduced, I believe, in a Tenant episode or an Eccleston episode. I believe Tenant episode. They are Cybermen. That's all I'm gonna say. Cybermen. I want you to realize what I want people who don't know what they are to figure out what they are. But you have all the Cybermen are consistent throughout the entirety of the series from when they get introduced. Not like super consistent, but they do pop up a few times. Hell, there's a character that I really like called Handles that you'll meet in 11's run. That is very funny. And there's a bit that's very funny with Handles that you will find very, very quickly. But they have the reintroduction of the Cybermen into the story, and it's very, very terrifying and sad. And then you have the Christmas special, which all of them are very good. I love all of the Christmas specials. Christmas specials are great. But this one with Capaldi is beautiful. It is, I believe, the Christmas on World War I or World War II, where they decide to have a ceasefire, and everyone celebrated Christmas. Both sides celebrated Christmas, and as if they were just family and friends. And it's a great story. It's beautiful, a beautiful story. I know it kind of spoils the plot a little bit, but it gives you an idea of where the time frame is, so you can get an idea. And then you have the regeneration from Peter Capaldi into the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor that we've seen in this at this point. I'll get to that wording anyway. Jodie Whittaker's first moments as the Doctor is she presses the button on the TARDIS, and the TARDIS then immediately explodes. Because something that tends to happen for some reason, and it's consistent with every Doctor, they all decide to do their regeneration inside of the TARDIS, which I feel like they're not supposed to do, because the TARDIS tends to break whenever they do that. So, it basically Jodie touches the TARDIS, presses the button on it, I believe, and then the TARDIS explodes and launches her out of it, thus making the first episode of Jodie's run, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, one of my personal favorite beginning episodes, next to Matt Smith's being The 11th Hour. 11th Hour being probably my favorite first episode of a Doctor, tied maybe with Jodie's or Tennant's. Tennant's is really funny. I love Tennant's. It's basically it's a Christmas special, so I would say it's probably my favorite Christmas special. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Christmas special, but I definitely say it's probably it's tied for favorite first Doctor episode. But Jodie Whittaker has a lot of weird, I don't want to say drama involved around it, but a lot of weird talks about it because of the person who wrote it, Chris Chibnall. I'm not going to go in detail. I'm not going to talk about it, but a lot of people either seem to be very hit or miss about Chris Chibnall. A lot of people seem to be hit or miss about Jodie Whittaker's overall performance. I think they're good. I think they're very good. I love Jodie's run. There's a lot of there's only I can count on my hand how many episodes I really did not like, and it's only really one that I can name, and it's called Orphan 55. It's not my favorite one. It just gets confusing because there's so much going on. But in theory, great episode, just too much going on. And I don't want to spoil it. You'll know why. But Jodie's run has a lot of great stuff. It has the introduction of my personal favorite Sonic, which a lot of people will say it doesn't look good. I love her Sonic. It's funny. It's funny looking. As well as it's made out of spoons, so it is very funny. I know that's a spoiler, but hey, guess what? When you look at it, which I'm going to put it on screen here, when you look at it, it's made out of spoons. It's made out of spoons. Anyway, yeah. Like I said, she has one of my favorite Sonics. She has a lot of really good episodes. There's a lot of weirder ones. There's not many reoccurring enemies in it. Christian will definitely try to do that, where he wanted to make it more interesting with that. However, as the series went on, he started to deviate away from that. And I'm kind of glad he did, because having enemies that we've never seen before kind of got a little boring after a while. But we get reintroduced to our old friend, the Master. In, I believe, the second series. Or first series. I can't remember. I can't remember which one. I had to double check. But we do get reintroduced to him. Let's check how we did in Capaldi's run. We do get reintroduced to that incarnation of the Master. If I didn't already mention that, I don't believe I did. But we do get reintroduced to them at some point. And his reveal of the Master, for me, was funnier because I already knew what he looked like, and then forgot that it was the Master. And then when it was revealed, I'm like, oh, I'm dumb. And also, yes, that was a small spoiler if you get the reference. But yeah, I'm gonna say it, he's my favorite iteration of the Master for a lot of different reasons. We'll get to it. But he's truly, just in general, a lot of Jody's run is great. There's rocky episodes that are kind of eh. But once we get to series 13, yes, she manages to get season 13 and as 13th Doctor. Season 13 called Doctor Who Flux. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of people don't really like it. I was okay with it. There's an episode in series 12 called The Timeless Children that, once you watch it, you'll understand why a lot of people don't like it once you've watched all the episodes up to that point. But I digress. Doctor Who Flux, series 13, because I'm trying to get to the end here. I want to wrap it up. Series 13 as a whole, probably my favorite out of Jody's run. But there's definitely a few episodes out of the first 2 seasons that I do like. Not saying I didn't like any of them, but I'd say Flux is probably my favorite because it has a lot more going. It has a lot going on, as well as it reintroduces characters that we haven't seen in a while. Yeah, so as well as enemies we haven't seen in a while. One of my personal favorites, actually. Also one of my personal favorites, but one of my one of the funnier ones. You'll know. If you know which one I'm thinking of, you'll know. When you think funny evil villain character, you'll know who I'm talking about. And in the entirety of the Flux, it is very kind of messy, but I do still like it. It's a little messy, but when you watch it all in one go, it's like, okay, this is pretty seamless. I do like this. And then we get to the most recent episode, and I'm going to put this right now. This is going to be the first mention of major spoilers. So please, if you do not want to be spoiled whatsoever, please turn back. And thank you guys so much for watching, because the rest of this is going to be major spoilers. I apologize, but I want to talk about this episode in a reasonable amount of detail. Not too much. I'm only going to be mentioning 2 big spoilers. Or 1 mainly, but there's 2. I'm saying 2 because there's a reason. But final warning: turn back now if you don't want to if you don't want to hear spoilers. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you are leaving now, go ahead. If you did enjoy this, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But for those of you who are staying, I want to hear me talk about the power of the Doctor, Jodie's final episode. Yeah, it is one of my favorite episodes, tied with Zygon version Invasion and 11th Hour. Those are probably my top 3 right there. One, there is a scene in it, and if you I can talk about it, because if you're still here watching spoilers, then why are you still here? Again, this is your last chance to leave. Please, if you don't want to be spoiled, please leave. The Rasputin scene is hilarious. Albeit terrifying when you realize the context, but it's still funny because during our little watch through, because we watched it live, I said, because, no spoiler, the Master masquerades as Rasputin, as Rasputin. And I jokingly said it would be funny if Rasputin, when the Master as Rasputin first appears and he's not in a flashback, if the song starts playing, and then we see he does the thing with the remote, and then he does the thing with the remote, and then the music starts playing, and I started laughing because I thought it was a soundboard. It wasn't the soundboard, it was the episode, and we both were laughing our butts off. But yeah, it was funny. It was great. They caught me so off guard. But that being said, we head over towards the best part, or not the best part, but the part that was painful. And that is saying goodbye to our companions of 13's run, which I forgot to mention, but I want you to experience them because they're great. We say goodbye to our companions, and then we see 13 regenerate into the 14th Doctor, David Tennant. I lost my mind. Because unfortunately I got boiled, but I kept it under wraps and was still lost my mind because I thought it was fake. I thought it was a spin-off series or something. I was lost my mind. But yeah, and then the 60th anniversary was announced recently for who's in it and everything, Catherine Tate returning, all that. And I was so happy to see all this stuff kind of culminate into something really, really cool. And yeah, just in general, I really, really liked Power of the Doctor. It's probably my favorite episode. But that being said, if you decide to either jump ahead to when we're done talking about spoilers, because I'll probably try and put a little timestamp if you do at least want to hear my closing thoughts. Closing thoughts, Doctor Who. It is definitely my number one show that I've watched of this year. Along with a bunch of others that like Steven Universe and a bunch of other shows. It's definitely up. It's probably my number one. I love it. It's amazing. Great show. I recommend anyone who hasn't already experienced it should watch it. Definitely watch it from 2000, the new Who or modern Who. If you want to watch classic, you can. I think it's a little hard to access, but you should be able to watch it. It will be available on Disney Plus. So starting in 2023, Doctor Who will be available on Disney Plus. So you don't have to have a BBC subscription or whatever. So that's going to be great. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. And again, it's more of a proof of concept idea. It is mainly a thing just to sort of talk about movies and shows that I've been watching and stuff like that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any videos. Follow me in the description below. Twitter, Instagram. I believe Hive's down there, Tumblr. I think that's about it, because Twitter is a mess and the future of it is very weird. But that being said, if you don't have any of those and you maybe have a Discord, join me over on the community Discord. I'd love to have you over there. I plan on trying to want to do a community game night sometime around my birthday next year in February. And yeah, I'll see you guys next video or live stream that I make. Have a good day, buddy. Stay safe. Enjoy the little tiny bit of the rest of this gameplay. Should be like another couple minutes, depending on the timeline. I'm recording this post gameplay, so yeah, there's that. But yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow for I don't know, because as me recording this, I do not know. It'll be something. That's all I know. It'll be something. Not gonna be Halo, unfortunately, but it'll be Halo Reach next week. Next week, yeah, next week. Halo Reach next week on Wednesday. Yeah. Tomorrow, again, I don't know. I'm not 100%. There will be a video tomorrow. Hopefully, I hope. I can't promise that, but I hope. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
System active. Copy. UAV orbiting the AO. Recon is online. UAV is being refueled. RTB at this time. Covering your six. Hostile UAV in the area. Enemy UAV active. Enemy UAV overhead.
Enemies here!
Enemy has the lead.
Enemy UAV active. Hostile care package in the...
Losing the lead.
Hostile sentry is online. Friendly UAV on station. Friendly cluster mine deployed.